Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It is December the 20th today, 2020, so it's 2020. Let's go see how the trees are doing. I put a lot of my more tender trees and better developed trees into the greenhouse here just to protect them from the cold weather we had. It's warmed up today. A lot of the snow is melted. Let's see how they're doing. All right, in we go. So, here's all the trees in here. It's quite crowded. I'm going to check the temperature up here. It is 3 or 4 degrees in here, Celsius. So, that is a good temperature. I do have my little heater down here on. It just blows out a little bit of warm air. So it takes the chill out of the greenhouse when it gets down to the really kind of colder temperatures. So yeah, that's what I have in the greenhouse. Everything looks okay in here. It's doing quite well. I still do have quite a few trees on the outdoor benches. Hopefully they'll be okay. That was just me making those squirrel noises, by the way. It wasn't the squirrel. Okay, so there's the plant room. Let's go downstairs and see how the trees are doing down there. The tropical trees. This was a strange year for me. I had the plant room under construction, so I had to do things quite differently from the way I normally do things. And that was to bring my tropicals down to the basement. I've never done that before. They usually go straight into the plant room where it's, warmer. Down here, it is, let's see what the temperature is today. It is 8.1 degrees Celsius, which is usually, that's a little warmer than it usually is. It's usually more like 5 to 7, because it's warm outside, I guess. If I look at the trees, they've been down here for, I'd say at least a month and a half. I took them out, okay, maybe even 2 months. I took them out on nice days for, to get some sunshine and some rain. But other than that, they've been down here in the basement, and it's very cool. It's fairly humid, not dripping wet or anything, and it's kind of changed the way I'm thinking of overwintering trees. So if I look at the trees, like here's a ficus here, my Ficus Fancy, the one with all the aerial roots and that on the trunk. If you look at the leaves, it looks really, really healthy. They're still green. I've had no insect problems down here at all because of the cool temperatures. I only have to water I check them every day, but I usually end up watering like every 4 to 7 days. So not very much water. It doesn't evaporate quickly at these temperatures, and because it's humid. So yeah, some of them even longer. They can go quite a while without water. So I haven't noticed any ill effects from the cool temperatures down here on the trees at all. And some of them are even growing. They're getting new shoots on them, which I can't believe. Some are dormant. Let's have a look at those. So over here, I've got my acacia trees from seeds. The leaves on them are kind of getting crispy, and they'll fall off soon. And even in the plant room, I get that. When it gets dark and kind of cloudy and cool out, they kind of lose their leaves, and then it warms up, and then they come back in. So I don't think a period of coolness will hurt those trees at all. My guava tree here, you can see the leaves have kind of turned purple. And again, that's quite normal on a guava. They can lose their leaves, and then once the temperature warms up, they bounce right back. Hopefully that'll happen on this one. My mimosa over here, again, same thing. It's kind of losing its leaves. They're turning colors and falling off. And I've read that's quite normal for a mimosa also. And any others? No, I think everything else is still green and looking lush and healthy. So back to my original train of thought, I was thinking, well, it's easier to keep them down here. There's less work. There's no spraying for insects. There's less watering. The trees, they don't grow much at all. Like, they just basically are dormant down here. So you don't get that coarse indoor growth in the winter. And, you know, if I were to put them outside in spring now, they would probably have a ton of vigor because they've been dormant so long. And I found that before. I had, before I built the plant room, I had this not so nice porch on the side of the house that was quite cool in winter. I struggled to keep it above freezing, and I lost a few trees because sometimes it would get below freezing in some of the corners of the room. So, yeah, I'm rethinking. I'm thinking, is this the better solution to bring my tropicals, you know, down in the basement, keep them chilled, keep them just above freezing for the winter, and then, you know, springtime comes and you put them outside and gradually warm them up again and get them going. So I don't know. The only disadvantage is you're losing, you know, the winter for growing on the trees, but yeah, it's interesting. Something to think about is that, you know, you don't have to keep your trees warm in the winter. Now, I don't know how long they can stay like this. I mean, they don't have a lot of light, but they do have light. And so far, you know, I put this LED light on here. I only have one plug down here, so the lights stay on this bench in the daytime, and then in the evening I turn these lights off and I put this grow light on over here. So they kind of share the plug. Kind of strange, but it works. Yeah, so I don't know what's better. Keeping your tropical trees warm in the winter or keeping them cool like this. And, you know, if they've had this cool period in winter, they've sat dormant, all that starch has turned to sugar, so in spring they'll probably grow like crazy. I found that in the past. I think that's what I was originally going to say, is back when I had that cool plant room, they would kind of sit dormant like this in the winter, and then when spring came, they grew like you wouldn't believe. It was unbelievable how much growth came on the trees. And it was usable growth. It was all compact because they were in sunlight. So that is my dilemma. I don't know what to do. Should I, you know, if I kept the trees down here, the tropicals, they would be dormant. It's a lot easier to heat down here. If I have to put a little heater in here, just to, you know, when it gets really, really cold outside, like minus 20 and below, I might need a little heater in here to keep this above freezing. But the amount of heat I would use is nothing compared to what, you know, I would use upstairs in the plant room. So I would then turn the plant room into a cold room. So the hardy trees would go up in the plant room and I wouldn't heat it. So that's another possibility. And it's kind of backwards from what you would think, but I don't know. It might be the best solution. I don't know. So anyway, let me know what you think of this idea. Yeah, it's kind of a new one for me. I always think, you know, you got to keep your tropical trees warm and, you know, buy expensive grow lights and keep them warm and manage all your pests all winter. But, you know, if you don't have to do that, it sure makes growing tropical trees a lot easier. Especially in this, like, Canadian cold climate. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but yeah, the other option is just keep the, you know, the plant room upstairs cooler, so it stays kind of like this, cool temperature, and then put my hardy trees down here. So maybe that's what I'll do. Anyway, I just thought I'd, you know, show you the plants, how they're doing, and that it's amazing that at these cool temperatures, they're all doing really well. I'm up in the plant room now. I've got a beautiful yellow flower out on my hibiscus. I have no idea why this one came in yellow and all the rest kind of came in that orangey color, but I don't know. So everything's doing really well up here. It's a balmy, probably 25 degrees Celsius in here. And I've been doing a lot of pruning lately. I haven't had a lot of reaction to the pruning yet. My aloe that I first kind of started with down here has some new shoots coming on it. You can see the bright new green growth. Other than that, nothing has really reacted to the pruning yet. I haven't seen any buds forming or any new growth on the trees yet, so I still have a lot of pruning to go. You can see I still have the lemon tree here is really tall. My ficus, my hibiscus here will need pruning. But I'm getting there. I've got a lot of the major work done for these trees up here anyway. I'm back outside now, and today's topic is that transition from the trunk of the tree to the first branches. Here's my American elm, and what I'm looking at today is I have the trunk coming up here, and then it divides into its first branches or upright trunks and more branches. And we're going to be looking at full-size trees, ones with single trunks, not clump style or multi-trunk ones, but ones that start off from the ground with a single trunk, and then they go up, and then finally divide. So we're going to be looking at this first junction point where the first branches come out of the tree. When I'm looking at trees in nature, I study the root base, I study the trunks, and I study that junction of the first branches. I find it really interesting to see what nature does as opposed to a lot of bonsai trees you see. A lot of bonsai trees are a bit contrived and predictable. And I think after today you'll see some examples in nature that are the opposite. They break the rules. It's not what you expect, and they're a little more unpredictable looking. And sometimes that gives them their charm. That's what makes them, a kind of a special tree. Let's head out into the city now and look at some examples of trees and see how they divide from their one trunk into their branch structure. Here's my first example of a tree. It's a young maple. It's not really old. So the trunk comes up from the root base, comes up and it divides into two right here, and then it divides into two again very quickly. And you'll notice that any branch structure that goes more vertical thickens up really quickly, whereas branches that are more horizontal or weeping, they stay slim and skinny. So, and you'll notice that in a lot of trees in nature, that anything upright thickens up and anything more horizontal stays slender. That's just a characteristic of the tree, I guess. Here's another older maple that follows almost the exact same branch structure. So it comes up and divides into two. The one on the left-hand side divides into two again very quickly. The one on the right-hand side divides into two further up. So pretty well the exact same branch structure as that younger tree, except this is an old mature maple. Here's a ginkgo tree. It's not really old, but it's, getting more mature. So it has an interesting division. It comes up with a single trunk, and then from the one spot on the trunk here, it has the main trunk which goes up, and then it's got three branches off to this one side here. If you can see those. Yeah. A really nice tree. I'll show you what it looks like from the distance. There's a view showing the whole tree. So a really interesting first branches on this tree. Now it's young. They may prune those off or something. We're looking at city trees today, so it could change. But interesting how nature does some very strange things. It breaks all the rules. Here's a good example of a tree that starts off with a single trunk. It divides into two, and then the one branch divides into two fairly high up here, and the other one kind of has a lot of branches coming from one spot on the tree. You'll notice how the upper structure fans out. So a lot of people ask me, if I train all my branches on a broom style tree to fan outwards, won't I get a big hole in the canopy at the top? And yes, you will, but that fills in later on. Remember I said that the upright branches grow the fastest and the thickest? So that's why I leave those upright branches to the end of the tree's development. You start growing those later on, more vertical ones up the center of the tree, and then your branch structure up at the top. You can have branches that come in towards the center also to fill that in. I leave those to last so they don't thicken up too quickly. So if you were to grow those upright center branches first, they would be twice as thick as all the ones surrounding it, and it wouldn't be a nice broom style tree. So you need to grow the more horizontal branches first, and then you allow the ones coming up the middle to grow and thicken, and eventually they'll be all the same size. Here's another large old maple, and this one comes up. It divides from one trunk into two, and this one divides into two again very quickly, whereas the other one, it gets a branch coming off here and some more branching further up. So, you know, similar to those first maples we saw where you divide into two and then one divides into two again very quickly. Oh, that's a big old tree, that one. Really nice. I love seeing the branch structure in the middle of winter. You can really study it. Here's an old silver maple, and I can tell it's a silver maple by the bark, the way it spirals up and the branches kind of lean outwards. So again, this one fans out from the center, so you do end up with a bit of a hole at the top of the tree here, but there's enough crossing branches that it kind of fills it in. So this tree divides. It comes up one trunk, divides into two, kind of a Y shape there, and it's got a branch coming off the other one, so similar pattern. One divides quicker than the other branch, and over here it has three branches coming out from pretty well the same spot. Here's a dawn redwood, so let's come up the tree and look at the first branches, and they kind of all come out at once at about the same level. So yeah, really nice old tree, this one. Yeah, she's a beaut. It's so nice to be able to hang out with a group of my friends again. How's it going, guys? No one's saying too much here. What about you, little one? Let's try this group of people over here. Maybe they've got more to say. I don't know. Hello? Oh, they're being pretty quiet too. Oh, this dude. Hello? They're not saying much at all. Here's a grand old linden tree, and let's go up and look at the branches. So it comes up and it divides into a broom style very, very quickly. So it's got a couple of branches down lower here. Yeah, it just keeps dividing. So interesting. Here's another one here. It comes up the single trunk. The main trunk continues off at an angle. And we've got some secondary upright trunks there, dividing. Got three branches coming from one spot there. I don't think this tree read the book on bonsai. Here's an interesting maple. If you subtracted this big branch off this side, it'd look like pretty well like a typical maple tree. But that branch kind of, I don't know, gives the tree character, something unique on it. It goes right up to the crown, almost like a twin trunk tree, but it definitely developed from a branch. Interesting. Here's a London plane tree. Its first branch comes quite low in the tree and quite horizontal. kind of stretches out. And the rest of the tree has a fairly, typical branch structure. The leader divides somewhere up here, just keeps dividing further, and the branches get finer towards the tip, or the crown. Yeah, interesting, very interesting tree. I'm on my way to the park, and I'm beginning to think I built my plant room a little small. Yeah, maybe I'm definitely thinking too small here. I don't know. Think of the greenhouse space I could have. Holy. So here's an old tree, an old maple. It divides from the one trunk here, divides into two, and maybe even three if there's one out back here. Yeah. A lot of division from one spot on the tree. And you can see it does create a bit of inverse taper. But, it looks fantastic. Beautiful tree. This building is a brand new theater in town. It didn't get used at all last year because of COVID. I've always wondered what it's like to be a plant under these LED grow lights. Now I know. Look at all that empty, unused space. Oh man. Could I grow trees in there, I tell you. I've made it down to the park here finally. Over here on the island there's a light display. So I think it'll get dark fairly soon. I've been taking my time getting down here. So we might come back and have a look at those later on. Someone's got their radio controlled truck out today. Doing all kinds of tricks with it. Here it comes. Here's a Dawn redwood tree, and the lowest branches are very, very close to the ground. Interesting. Just a small tree, but I imagine in the next few years it'll grow quite tall and mighty. Here's an old maple, and this is probably about as big as a maple ever gets. Here's the root base, and I don't know if you can see my foot there. It's pretty big. You can see how old it is. I'm out here looking at the first branches, so let's see where they start on this tree. We've got the trunk is pretty solid. It comes up, there's a great big trunk on this side, another one on this side, a central leader. And is that about it? 3 trunks? Yeah, that's it. That's the first division of the tree. It divides into 3. And you can see how close these 2 trunks are together. You can just see a crack of light between them. Even this one, it's very close to the center trunk. Yeah, just an amazingly large tree. Over at the top of this hill here is that old ginkgo I've shown you before in videos. We'll go have a look at that. Check out its branch structure. This is another one of our Shakespearean theaters in town. And at the very top up here, there's a greenhouse. And I'm hoping someday we can arrange an interview with the caretaker of the greenhouse. They keep all the plants that are in the building in the greenhouse in the winter, and then in the summer when the theater's open, they have them on display everywhere. I'm coming up on the old ginkgo here, so let's have a look at that. This is a twin trunk tree, and the trunk comes up and it divides here, and there's another branch behind it, and a major split in the middle here. So lots of branches in unusual locations. Here's a close-up of the chi, or the nipples on the tree that hang down from the branches on old ginkgos. Really cool. Here's all the ginkgo leaves on the ground, and they're quite small. If I look at a typical leaf here, that's quite small for a ginkgo leaf. Amazing. There's a nice chi there. The other trunk comes up. It divides from one. It's got a branch off to the right, one to the left, up the middle, and that divides into two. Lots of branches coming from one spot on the tree. And you can see these two trunks up here have pretty well fused together. There's no gap between them. They've kind of grown together as almost one unit. Amazing. Rather a spectacular tree. I always enjoy coming back and looking at it, checking out all the branches, and really cool. Do you guys know where I can find some cool trees? No? What about you, sir? No, he's not answering. They're over there. What? Over there. Oh, there's where they are. Thank you. I think William Shakespeare's come back to life as a Terminator robot. I've made it to the park where there's a lot of old, mature trees. Here's a spruce tree, and this is a cathedral-style spruce. So you can see all the lower branches reach up for the sky and create this massive crown. Here's the base of that tree, and I'll pan up, and here's the first branch, and it's massive. There's the size of my hand. It is a giant branch, and it makes its way up here and shoots up into the sky. Just amazing. It's very humbling being underneath these trees. Here's another massive branch here. It snakes along, starts going vertical, and then up it goes. Again, right up to the sky. Out the back here, there's another branch higher up that again curves up and goes vertical. It splits into two here, so there's two vertical leaders on that branch that go perfectly straight up. Just amazing. What a tree. Here's an oak tree, and you can see the trunk comes up and it divides into two major upright trunk lines. And then oaks often have smaller branches coming off the base of the tree. They don't really amount to much, but the oak continues skyward into this big fan-shaped crown. Here's a large spruce tree. It has a side branch that's turned into a trunk, and it goes up, and then it has a branch that reaches straight skyward. You can see it goes up here, has another branch coming off it, and then that swoops skyward too. So it's like a double cathedral branch. It's just amazing. I love that. It's just amazing being under these spruce trees. They're just huge. The base of the trunk is, I don't know if you can see my boot here. It's a pretty big tree. Here's a really large spruce. No cathedral branches on it, but a lot of branches up top. It's a tall, tall tree. There's a couple of squirrels over there up to no good. Here's the base of that spruce, and you can see my hand here. It's it's a big, big tree. Here's another spruce tree, and it's rare to see a really nice root base on a spruce tree, but here is one here. As we go down, check that root base out. Wow. Just amazing, and it goes all the way around the tree. It's got, ridges on the trunk here. Yeah, you don't often see a spruce with a really nice root base like that. That's just amazing. Wow. The squirrel over here just fell out of the tree. I think he's okay. Are you okay? Here's the row of black walnut trees. This once defined a property line, and the trees have gotten really big and mature now. Bye-bye. Here's a maple tree. It comes up, single trunk, has a branch on the left-hand side, one on the right-hand side, another one on the right-hand side, and the main trunk, which is, looks like it's almost dead, the main trunk. I'm not sure what kind of trees these are, but you can see the branches coming off the trunk. They kind of weep, and then as you go up the tree, they get more and more upright, and then there's a small crown at the top. There's a nice Austrian pine, kind of a flat top type style. Looks really nice. Here's a nice root base on a maple tree. And if you go up the tree, it has a fairly typical branch structure. Left, right, back. A huge crown on the tree. Here's I think it's an elm tree with ribbon roots. And this is the only tree I've ever seen growing outside in Canada that has ribbon roots. Or rocket fin roots, or whatever you want to call them. They're amazing. You can see, you know, the top of them, very buttressed. This one especially, look at that one. Very rocket fin-like. Thin up top, and that triangular form when viewed from the side view. Just amazing. Must be a genetic thing, I guess. It's definitely an elm tree. You can see the leaves here. Elm leaves, it looks like elm branching. Got a lot of knots happening on it, but yeah, cool tree. I hope it lives. I'm in the area of the park with the old maples now. So here's a root base of a maple down here. And it's quite large. Here's my boot for scale. Yeah, it's a big tree. I'll pan up and you can see how tall it is. It goes way, way up. Let's look at the branch structure on it. A lot of maples can grow really, really tall before they get their first branch, and you can see this is one of them. So these branches down lower are fairly insignificant, and then up higher it divides into two major trunk lines, and then more branching coming off of that, and eventually a big wide kind of crown at the top. I may have lost focus of what this video is about. It's supposed to be about the first branch structure on a tree, or where a tree divides from one trunk into its branch structure above. I'll try and show you a few more, and that'll be it. It's starting to get dark out. Here is one of the oldest maples in the park, and it's so old that it won't be around much longer. You can see the trunk is starting to deteriorate. It's probably hollow inside. You can see the fluting on the trunk where you know, the veins come up from the roots, and then they form these big ridges around the trunk. Just a huge root base. I'll show you my boot there. Yeah, so it's a big tree. So you can see the bark is starting to maybe rot out from the inside. Really rough bark texture, lots of character to the tree. Yeah, just amazing. Some maples don't get much older than this. So you can see it comes up with a single trunk. We've got a branch coming out to the left, which kind of goes upwards. A branch to the right, and it kind of slowly goes upwards. And then sort of a crown on the tree. Multi-branches coming out from one spot. There's at least 3 trunks coming out from the one spot. And then it just kind of further divides. There's a lot of dieback at the top there, which happens a lot in old maples. and forms this massive crown. Great big shade tree. The root base is even looking really old. It's got sections of it that have died off, kind of hollow nooks and crannies in it. You can see over here there's sections that have died off on it. Here there's some more. It's kind of got scar tissue around the wounds. The roots are, you know, really mature above the surface of the soil. Quite something. It's quite the old tree. And it's a nice color too. There's a massive root out this one side. Yeah. You can tell it's all hollow. The squirrels live in it. There's a big hole there where they go in and out. It's probably full of acorns in there. Winter sure is the best time to look at trees and the tree structure. Ah, you see some beauties. Images like this is one of the reasons I'm so fussy about my roots on the tree, to get those radial roots, because eventually you'll end up with a root structure something like this, and it's just incredible. It's just inspiring. That might be my thumbnail right there. I think the whole purpose of this video is I'm trying to encourage you to go out in nature, take walks, and study trees in, you know, actual full-size trees, and then try and mimic or copy or get those kind of characteristics in your bonsai tree. That's what this whole video is about. Go out in nature and study trees. I'm really having fun walking around today. Ever since I started working on the plant room, I've been too busy. I couldn't go for my morning walks, and I really miss them. So it's nice to be out again, walking around, looking at trees. I really enjoy it. And that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.